A common theme throughout this week's mission trip is that Scripture tells us we are the salt of the earth and the light of the world. Salt has many purposes. It purifies to make us clean of our wounds. Salt preserves and enhances flavor, preventing food and other items from being plain and simple. As for light, it draws out the darkness when we are most desperate. Light guides and warms us when we may feel as if all hope is lost. At the time, I could not fully comprehend the impact these words would have on me until now. This week, we had the opportunity to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world. The first 3 days, we painted ramps and staircases for those who were disabled or permanently injured. Painting took a toll on us physically. When we got there on day one, all of us were ready to take on the impossible. It was just another walk in the park, so to speak. Being my first mission trip, this was only logical. I was soon to find that this was not the case. On our first house, it required tasks that truly tested our capabilities. While painting was our number one priority, others had to manage the task of leveling 2 ramps. Pickaxe in hand, Randy, Jake, and Julian dug into the ground in order to even a surface area to place both ramps. Through blood, sweat, and tears, but mainly sweat, these 3 ensured the safety of someone who needed it most. By the time we had reached our 3rd house, we were exhausted, to say the least. But when we had arrived, we were greeted with open arms by the homeowner, Miss Elsa. You see, Miss Elsa spoke little English, and most of us knew little Spanish. But there wasn't an immediate bond out of pure discussion, but rather taking the time to sit outside with us. This made us feel compelled to know Miss Elsa better. But just because one speaks a different language doesn't mean you can't understand them. Whether it's from saying hello to giving or receiving a hug, these things bring out the best in us. By the time we had finished painting, we were to bless Miss Elsa's house. Through this, we had grown closer to one another and through the love and grace of God. What I learned this week was that Jesus shows us the way, and as servants of God, it is our responsibility to shed the light for those in the dark, to heal the wounds of those in pain. No matter how difficult the task, Jesus is there to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world for us, so we may do the same for others.
First off, I'm going to tell you something I learned. Yate banaste. I said, did you shower? That sentence was very common at the Welcome Center. Now, I bet some of you are wondering what the Welcome Center is and why I'm asking that. During the mission trip this last week, on Thursday, after we had completed work on the houses, we were taken to visit some place most of us didn't know much about. This was a place where families turned themselves in to the Border Patrol to keep themselves safe. Some of the families traveled months from Guatemala or Honduras. They crossed hundreds of miles through dangerous rainforests, hot plains, and they traveled this way by foot and by trains. They did anything to get themselves to their destination. Most of the families sold every single possession they had just to travel to the border. That doesn't include the cost to travel through the border, legally or illegally. Legally or illegally. So when they arrived, finally, in this land, most found themselves filtered, for one reason or another, into detention centers. Unfortunately, these detention centers weren't that great either. Basic human necessities were rare. Most of them went months without a shower. The teenagers were the only ones who were able to shower because they were sent to juvie. The children weren't even able to. Seeing people having to live in this condition was heartbreaking. But at the Welcome Center, it was different. We were there to help people get their feet under them for a time. We showed them the way to the shower. We gave people food. I think we gave them hope. There was a family that Nancy got to know in their story. Where they came from, there was a militia, which is supposed to be an emergency force to protect the town, but in reality, were a gang that ruled the town. They would recruit elementary schoolers by telling them to join the gang, or they would cut off the hand of the youngest in their family. So people did that. They joined, or I guess they gave over their children to have their hands cut off, or they ran. I can't even imagine myself in their shoes, literally because I am the youngest in my family. I can't see having to run out of Texas or even Round Rock through the hot, dry wilderness, dropping everything I have just to be safe and not have my hands cut off. To make matters worse, even as they're running from whatever horrible people they're running from, they couldn't bring all of their family members. By federal law, if both parents come together with their kids, one of the parents gets deported. The families were always thankful for what we did. After all they have been through, they still smiled and thanked me after I helped them. I will be honest, most of the time I felt helpless. They all spoke fluent Spanish, and I can only speak some basic sentences. But even though I felt like that, I still felt as if I was being the salt and light in their life. And a little salt and a little light is all that is needed to make a change or impact.
Hello. So, the mission trip was not all hard work and caring for other people. We also were able to focus in on our own faith and were able to strengthen it. On Thursday, after eating lunch in a very nice little park, we went to a shrine called Basilica of Our Lady of San Juan del Valle National Shrine. It is an awesome building, and by that I mean filled with awe, and it was built after a miracle. In 1623, a man and his family were in a traveling circus and stopped in the area to perform. However, during the performance, the youngest daughter fell and died. An Indian woman in the area begged the parents to place an image of the Virgin Mary over the body and began to pray. The child was brought back to life, and the miracle led to the devotion to Our Lady, La Virgen de San Juan. Ugh. The shrine was enormous, having a capacity of 3,150 people, an entire wing devoted to confession, another section for saints, and more room for one of the most elaborate mosaics I have ever seen. On the walls lining the way out were statues of saints that people would pray to. Each statue had some sort of item that people would place on it. One had money, another had roses, and one even had cloth draped around its neck. Not only were there statues, people would also place pictures and prayers underneath a sheet of glass for others to pray to. In front of the mosaics, there was a place to light candles, pray, and write down a prayer in this thing that they had made. The church had invested in buying poster holders, you know, the ones at stores where you can just flip through the posters. But they had slid cardboard into it, white cardboard, and people could either write down a prayer or put a military loved one picture on it for others to pray to. I enjoyed reading many of the prayers, and my two favorite ones were, one was how they wanted to start making an honest living. There was no point in making dirty money. The other one was about how they hoped to go on in life with the heart of a soldier and the wits of a hustler. Outside of the building was breathtaking. Right when you exited the building, there was a path that you could follow. Along the path, there were stations of the cross, and each station was a life-size statue of Jesus' last day. The artistry was in incredible detail, which made the walkthrough a lot easier to connect to. The facial expressions and the state that Jesus seemed to be in made the whole event more real to me. Before this, it was a sort of superhero tale to me. Jesus carried a cross all the way up to the mountain, no problem. The statues depicted a much different image. They told a story in which Jesus was in incredible pain, falling, sweating, and suffering to bring this large, awkward wooden object a distance much, much further than we had walked. The statues ended with Jesus being laid into his tomb. Now, it wasn't like how we always depict it. You know, we have a body shape with cloth wrapped around it. No, this was an actual body unwrapped, laying there on the stones. And that was a bit of an eye-opener for me. I realized that everyone, all of his loved ones, his friends, even his enemies, didn't see the lump of cloth like we see. They had seen that body of Jesus lying there on the rocks, but they didn't have the futuristic insight to know that he would rise 3 days later. Now, it wasn't all depressing realizations when we weren't on the job site. Our time was filled with games, especially foosball. Every single day, at least once, everyone would be bent over breathless from laughing too hard at some joke. Many, many, many inside jokes and memories were created while playing around that one game table. We played also hide-and-go-seek around the church and even managed to play a somewhat successful game of sardines. At night on Tuesday, we turned off all of the lights in the fellowship hall and played statues in the park. Many of us were incredibly paranoid after that, which made scaring people pretty easy. I was a target for a lot of jump scares. Thank you, Josh and Debbie. Our most played game outside of foosball was Empire. Everyone would write down something from a topic, and the rest of the table guessed who put down what. When someone guessed right for another person, the two would join together to form an empire. Many amusing discoveries, strategies, and pairs were formed in the hours, and long-lasting jokes and memories will follow us forever. Unfortunately, memories can get fuzzy and fade. However, Brad was injured in an intense game of sardines and was out of commission for work. So he took pictures, a lot of pictures. And he made them into a slideshow while we were down there, and I believe that now is when we're being showing them. So.
mold me in your image, the work of your hand. Make me salt, make me light, let your holy fire ignite, reveal your glory in my life. Hey, hey, hey. 'Cause I am not ashamed to lift up your holy name. Make me salt, make me light. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Make me salt, make me light. Let your holy fire ignite. Reveal your glory in my life. 'Cause I am not ashamed to lift up your holy name. Make me salt, make me
So thank you to all of y'all who went and who gave so unselfishly of yourself and truly were salt and light to people down in the Mexico-Texas border. So as a people of God who are called to be salt and light, I invite you now to stand and let us affirm what we believe.